Hello folks, Johnny Bag of Donuts here. Today I am going to talk about the Return to Karazhan, which was a new dungeon after the 7.1 patch came out that we can now do. It's kind of a new old dungeon. They revamped it for the new content here in Legion. And I must say, I'm really impressed with some of the things Blizzard did. I really don't like some of the other things that have been going on that are, associated with the dungeon. So this is kind of going to be maybe a semi-longish video. I'm going to go over all these points that I have wrote down that I would like to discuss, tell you my viewpoint on it from a guy that's already done the dungeon twice. I'm going to put some footage on there so you guys can actually see the dungeon in the background. And I'm going to end the video on a good note and talk about what Blizzard did really well. And they really have done some things just incredibly well with this dungeon. So first off, we're going to start off with the cons, go with the negatives. There aren't too many of them, and honestly, the ones that I'm about to talk about really aren't like, oh my god, this dungeon was done terribly. It's kind of what happens as a result of the way they made the dungeon, not specifically the dungeon itself. So the first one would be difficulty. If I had to guess, this is somewhere between like a +5 and a +7 in difficulty. For that reason, it's kind of hard to find good groups. It's really, people have to be skilled, they have to know the fights. Even if you are skilled players and you go in there with kind of semi-low gear and not having seen the fights before, you're going to wipe several times. It's just not an easy dungeon at all. So people are being very picky about the pugs they bring into it. Even guilds themselves, like we have an awesome guild. We do mythic raids. We have very geared people. And even we were wiping several times on these fights. Like they're not easy. Particularly Maiden of Virtue. Extremely hard fight. There was some optical things that were going on. And my recommendation for this fight is if you do it, turn your graphics settings down. She does a holy aura thing and a bunch of like blinding light stuff. And if your graphics are on ultra like mine are when you're playing the game, the stuff she puts on the ground around you look just like her holy aura stuff. Once I turned my graphics down to like a 6, then they're very easy to tell apart. But at high graphic levels with all that glare and everything going on, there really weren't. So I would recommend turning your graphics down when you go in there. The second con about the dungeon is the length of the dungeon. Even us with competent players, all like around eye level, 870 gear score-ish, still took us 3 hours to complete. It's not a, hey, I just want to pick this dungeon up and go there type deal. Nor was old Karazhan. So like it used to be a raid. It was made to be a raid length. So what do you expect, right? So going into it, knowing that the length is one of the cons, make sure you have somewhere between 2.5 and 4 hours set aside to do this dungeon run, or you're going to be very pissed off. That's just the way that goes. The last con that I want to talk about is the attunement, and this won't be a con for some of you, it will be for others. There can be a lot of debate about this topic. For me, it's a con because you have to spend, half of a day or a couple hours running your guildies through attunements, getting people attuned just to get a group to go in there and do it. So people that are under time constraints, people that have jobs or, 2 jobs that work 2 hours a week, in my guild, Heralds of Strife, our GM has 2 or 3, one of our GMs has 2 or 3 jobs, and that guy just doesn't have the time, and I feel bad for him. For people that don't have a lot of time to devote to it, the attunement is a definite negative. And while I'm on the topic of our Heralds of Strife, I want to give a shout out to the guild. Our guild's been doing amazing work. We've downed 2 mythic bosses already. They're a great bunch of guys and girls. We play on Wormrest Accord, we play Horde, and the name of the guild is Heralds of Strife. So if you guys are looking for a mythic raiding guild, hit us up. We always need people, and they're a solid group of guys. And girls, not just guys. Alright, so leading into the pros, and I'm going to try to do this section without super fanboying it. Like, I'm really not going to try to just, oh my god, I love Blizzard, although I do. I'm going to try and stay objective as possible. As one of my favorite YouTubers, Total Biscuit, always does, he tries to stay objective. So I'm going to try and do the same thing. So the first pro is old content leading into the new. When I first went into the dungeon, just as you guys will find out without too many spoilers, is it looks like a carbon copy of old Kara. And somewhere about halfway through it, all this new crazy shit comes up, and like the fights are different, there's new content, there's new crazy scenes, and you go, oh my god, this isn't just a regurgitated dungeon. They actually wanted to fake you out, make you think that's what it was, and then blast all this cool new content at you. And to me, that was a huge pro. Like, I thought that was amazing. They literally had me going. Like, halfway through the dungeon, I was like, they want us to believe this was amazing, and all they did was copy the old dungeon. Like, this is crazy. And then boom, very next fight, all this new content, new mechanics, new maps. It was awesome. So stick it out if you're anything like me. I think Blizzard did a great job of the old bait and switch on that one. Like, that was pretty amazing. The next pro is fight mechanics. These fights are not easy. And if you're like me, if you're kind of an elitist, you're a Mythic Raider type dude, that's a pro for me. Like, I like the fact that most scrubs will probably not be doing this. Like, that's really cool to me. So the fight mechanics are not easy. Maiden of Virtue, probably the hardest fight in the whole place. Kind of resembles old Kara, right? Like, Maiden of Virtue was a bitch. So it's a pretty not so great fight. I mean, there's a bunch of trash, as you know. The fight mechanics are pretty cool, but to me, those hard fight mechanics are a pro. Like, that's a positive in my eyes. The gear rewards. I don't know where exactly they start at. I never got a piece of gear under eye level 860, but I did get a piece of gear that was 880 and like a BIS trinket out of there, which was the crit trinket off the last boss. So the gear for me was actually really good. So I'm glad they made the gear scale. It's higher level than other stuff that you're doing right now. Like, it's better gear than, Emerald Nightmare, for example. So to me, that was a huge, huge positive. And the last pro I want to talk about is the ending and the lore. Without giving it away, without spoiling it for you guys, the last fight, what happens, and like what they do with the lore is absolutely amazing. I mean, I was blown away. I was just like, holy crap, Blizzard, you did it again. You exceeded my expectations. You really did. Like, it's just amazing. The last fight is not hard. It's just, it's mechanic heavy. The lore behind it's amazing. Like, the fight locations are amazing. Like, it's really effing cool. Like, you people just need to go get in a Karazhan group, join a good guild like Herald of Strife and make it happen, man, because you've got to see the end of that. And in an upcoming video, me and a few buddies are going to discuss the significance of the lore behind the way that ended, because I really, really, really want to branch out into doing some lore stuff. And I think it's just amazing. I'm a lore nerd at heart anyway. So in an upcoming video, we will discuss that. So in summation, at the end of this kind of long rant-y video about the return to Karazhan, it's overwhelmingly positive. There are some cons. There are some things that I wish weren't the case. But, being a Mythic Raider elitist guy, I'm glad they're that way. I really am. I think they did a great job. They faked me out, making me think it was a lazy effort and regurgitated dungeon, and it's not. That is not what it ends up being. The way it ended was pretty amazing. The gear rewards are great. So overall, I think the return to Karazhan was an awesome dungeon. I mean, Blizzard did a great job. I hope you guys feel the same way. Get out there, get ready, get going, get geared up, get yourself in a good guild, or pick up a pug if you have to, and start playing this dungeon, folks. Like, it's amazing. I appreciate you guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll talk to you later.